The evening sky had turned a deep purple as Judge Elaine Montgomery gathered her papers from the courtroom. It was nearly 8:30 p.m., and she was the last one in the building apart from the security guard who nodded goodbye as she pushed through the heavy glass doors into the cool night air. "Another late one, Judge?" asked the guard with a friendly smile. "You know how it is." "Ray, these cases don't review themselves," she replied, adjusting her shoulder bag. At 52, Elaine had spent 15 years on the Superior Court bench. She'd earned every step of her journey from the public defender's office to her current position, working twice as hard as many of her colleagues to prove herself worthy of the black robe she wore. Tonight had been particularly demanding, a complex custody case that tugged at her heartstrings, requiring her careful attention well beyond regular hours. She walked to the far corner of the parking lot where her new car gleamed under the streetlights. 2 weeks ago, she'd finally replaced her trusty old sedan with something she'd long wanted, a sleek midnight blue luxury car that represented years of careful saving and professional achievement. Her fingers still felt unfamiliar with the smooth key fob as she pressed the button and heard the satisfying click of the doors unlocking. The leather seat welcomed her tired body as she settled in, placing her bag on the passenger seat. The engine purred to life and soft jazz filled the interior. Elaine took a deep breath, letting the day's tensions begin to melt away as she navigated out of the parking lot and onto the main road toward home. The streets were relatively quiet this evening. Elaine drove carefully, her mind drifting to her daughter's upcoming visit from college that weekend. She'd need to stock the fridge and prepare the guest room. Lost in pleasant thoughts of family time, she barely noticed the police cruiser that had been following her for several blocks until its lights suddenly flashed behind her. Elaine checked her speedometer. She was driving exactly at the limit. She signaled and pulled over to the shoulder, her heartbeat quickening slightly as it did whenever she saw flashing lights, regardless of her position in the justice system. Force of habit made her reach for her purse, retrieving her license and the vehicle registration from the glove compartment before the officer even approached. Through her rear-view mirror, she watched a tall officer exit his vehicle. His hand rested casually on his holster as he approached. Standard procedure, she knew, but still unnerving. Elaine lowered her window and placed both hands visibly on the steering wheel, another habit she'd developed and had unfortunately needed to teach her son and nephews. "Good evening, officer," she said calmly as he reached her window. Officer Daniel Barrett leaned down slightly, his flashlight beam sweeping across the car's interior, before settling uncomfortably on her face. "License and registration," he said without returning her greeting. "May I ask why I've been pulled over?" Elaine inquired politely, maintaining eye contact while slowly reaching for the documents she'd already prepared. "You made an improper lane change back there," he said flatly. His eyes narrowed as they moved from her face to the luxurious interior of the vehicle. "This your car?" "Yes, it is," Elaine replied, handing over her license and registration. "I just purchased it 2 weeks ago." Officer Barrett took the documents but continued looking around the interior of the car with obvious suspicion. "Pretty nice ride," he commented, his tone shifting. "How long did you say you've had it?" 2 weeks, Elaine repeated, a familiar knot forming in her stomach. She'd been here before, though not since becoming a judge. The questioning about ownership of nice things, the implication that somehow they couldn't possibly belong to her legitimately. The officer studied her license, looking back and forth between the photo and her face several times. "This address current?" "Yes, it is. I've lived there for 11 years. His radio crackled and he stepped back slightly to respond to it, though he kept his eyes fixed on her. After a brief exchange, he returned to her window. "I'm going to need you to sit tight. We've had reports of a vehicle matching this description in a theft situation." Elaine's heart sank. She knew there had been no such reports. In 15 years on the bench, she'd developed an excellent radar for fabricated probable cause. "Officer, I can assure you this vehicle is mine. I purchased it from Lakeside Motors 2 weeks ago. You can call them to verify if needed." Officer Barrett's posture stiffened. "Ma'am, I'm just doing my job here. If everything checks out, you'll be on your way shortly." He walked back to his cruiser with her documents. Through her mirrors, Elaine could see him speaking into his radio again. A few minutes later, another police car pulled up behind his. Her hands tightened on the steering wheel as she watched a second officer join Barrett for a brief conversation. Both glanced at her car repeatedly, The two officers approached together. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to step out of the vehicle," Barrett said, his hand again resting on his holster. "May I ask why that's necessary, Officer Barrett?" Elaine said, intentionally using his name from his badge. "I've provided my license and registration showing this is my vehicle." "Please step out of the car, ma'am," he repeated more firmly this time. Elaine took a deep breath. "Officer Barrett, I want to cooperate, but I believe I have the right to know why I'm being asked to exit my vehicle when I've committed no violation, beyond what you claim was an improper lane change." The second officer stepped forward. "Ma'am, we have reason to believe this vehicle may be stolen. Please cooperate and exit the vehicle." "This vehicle is not stolen," Elaine said clearly. "I am Judge Elaine Montgomery of the Superior Court. I purchased this car 2 weeks ago from Lakeside Motors. You are welcome to verify that information." Both officers exchanged glances at the mention of her title. "Judge?" Officer Barrett repeated skeptically. "Do you have identification to prove that?" "My judicial ID is in my purse on the passenger seat," Elaine replied. "May I reach for it?" After receiving a nod, she slowly retrieved her judicial identification card and handed it to them. Officer Barrett examined it carefully, his expression shifting almost imperceptibly. "We still need to verify the vehicle, Judge," he said, though his tone had changed slightly. "Standard procedure." By now, several cars had slowed as they passed the scene, 2 police cars with flashing lights surrounding a luxury vehicle. Elaine noticed a couple had stopped entirely, passengers holding up phones likely recording the encounter. The humiliation of the situation washed over her, but she maintained her composure. "I understand procedure, Officer Barrett. I've been working in the justice system for over 20 years. What I don't understand is why you immediately assumed this car was stolen upon seeing me driving it." The second officer shifted uncomfortably, while Barrett's jaw tightened. "We received a report of a similar vehicle being stolen, ma'am." "When was this report filed?" Elaine asked, knowing her rights and the law better than most. "Recently," Barrett replied vaguely. "I need to run the VIN number." "Then please do so," Elaine said firmly. "But I believe we both know there was no such report." The tension in the air was palpable as Barrett moved to the front of her car to check the VIN while the second officer stood nearby, occasionally glancing at the growing number of onlookers. Elaine remained standing by her car door, acutely aware of how this scene appeared. A black woman being questioned about her ownership of a luxury vehicle. The familiar injustice of it stung sharply, despite her years of working within the system, despite the title she had earned, despite the robe she wore nearly every day in service of justice. Barrett returned several minutes later, her documents in hand. His face was unreadable as he returned them to her. "Everything appears to be in order, Judge Montgomery," he said, his voice notably more formal than before. "You're free to go." "Officer Barrett," Elaine said quietly, taking her license and registration. "I'd like your badge number and the incident number for this stop." A muscle twitched in his cheek. "Of course," he replied stiffly, providing the information which she carefully noted in her phone. As the officers returned to their vehicles, Elaine remained standing beside her car for a moment, collecting herself. She noticed several people still watching, witnesses to another everyday indignity that no title or achievement could fully shield her from. She slid back into her car, placed her hands on the steering wheel, and closed her eyes briefly. The familiar mixture of anger, hurt, and resignation washed through her. But beneath it was something else: determination. This incident would not go unreported or unaddressed. Not this time. Elaine started her engine again and carefully pulled back onto the road, continuing her journey home. The encounter had lasted less than 20 minutes, but its impact would stretch far beyond this night. As she drove, her judicial mind was already cataloging details, witnesses, and procedural violations. Tomorrow would bring decisions about how to address what had happened. But tonight she just needed to get home to safety, to process yet another reminder of how much work remained to be done in the system she had dedicated her life to upholding. The police lights continued to flash, casting red and blue shadows across the roadside scene. Despite Officer Barrett's statement that she was free to go, Elaine noticed neither police car had moved or turned off their lights. A cold feeling settled in her stomach. "Actually, Judge Montgomery," Officer Barrett said, approaching her car again, "my supervisor is requesting we complete a more thorough verification." "Your supervisor?" Elaine questioned. I thought you'd already verified my vehicle registration and identification. Standard procedure for high-value vehicles with recent registrations, he replied smoothly, though his eyes didn't meet hers. We've had a string of auto thefts in this area. Elaine noticed a third police car pulling up. This one was unmarked, likely the supervisor. She took a deep breath, steadying herself. More bystanders had gathered at a safe distance, their phones still recording. The growing audience only heightened her sense of humiliation, but it also meant witnesses. Her legal mind was already cataloging every procedural misstep. A heavy-set officer with sergeant stripes emerged from the unmarked car. He spoke briefly with Barrett before approaching Elaine. Judge Montgomery, I'm Sergeant Wilson. I apologize for the inconvenience, but we need to complete our verification process. And what does that entail, Sergeant? Elaine asked, her voice calm despite her racing heart. I've already provided my license, registration, and judicial identification. Officer Barrett has verified the VIN. What further verification could possibly be necessary? The sergeant's expression remained impassive. We need to check the vehicle for any signs of tampering and run a complete background check through our system. It shouldn't take more than 20 minutes. And the legal basis for this search would be, Elaine pressed. Ma'am, we're just following protocol for what, Sergeant? For a black woman driving an expensive car? Because I assure you, this is not standard protocol for a simple traffic stop, based on an alleged improper lane change. Her words hung in the air. The second officer looked down at his shoes while Barrett's face hardened. Sergeant Wilson cleared his throat. Judge, I understand your frustration, but... No, I don't think you do, Elaine interrupted, her professional composure beginning to crack. What you're doing is harassment and profiling. I've verified my identity and ownership of this vehicle. Unless you have probable cause to believe a crime has been committed, I am under no obligation to consent to a search of my vehicle. More cars had slowed down to watch the scene unfold. Elaine spotted at least 5 people recording now. Part of her wanted to hide from the cameras, from becoming another viral video of a black person being harassed by police. But the judge in her, the woman who had fought for justice her entire career, knew this moment needed witnesses. We received a report of a stolen vehicle matching this description, Sergeant Wilson stated. Then please provide me with the specifics of this report, Elaine challenged. The time it was filed, the case number, and the exact description of the vehicle. Because if such a report exists, I have a right to know that information. The 3 officers exchanged glances. Barrett's hand moved to rest on his holster again, a subtle intimidation tactic that Elaine immediately recognized. Step out of the vehicle. Please, Sergeant Wilson said, his tone hardening. Am I being detained? Elaine asked clearly. Yes, you are being temporarily detained while we investigate. On what grounds? Suspicious activity and possible auto theft. Elaine wanted to laugh at the absurdity, but there was nothing funny about the situation. She knew her rights, but she also knew the reality of roadside confrontations. Slowly, she opened her door and stepped out, standing tall despite her 5'6" frame being dwarfed by the officers. I want it on record that I do not consent to any search of my vehicle, she stated firmly, and I want all of your badge numbers and names. Sergeant Wilson nodded to the other officers who began a search of her car while he took her to stand by his vehicle. The roadside had become something of a spectacle now. Elaine counted at least 10 civilian cars pulled over, people watching. Some looked concerned, others curious. She recognized a young law clerk from the courthouse among them, his face shocked as he realized who was being detained. Judge Montgomery? He called out. Is everything okay? Do you need me to call anyone? Before she could answer, Officer Barrett stepped between them. Sir, please return to your vehicle and move along. I know her, the clerk insisted. She's a Superior Court judge. We're aware of who she claims to be, Barrett replied. This is a police matter. The clerk looked to Elaine, uncertainty on his face. It's all right, Thomas, she called to him. Just make sure you're recording. The young man nodded, pulling out his phone and joining the growing number of witnesses. Meanwhile, the search of her car continued. Elaine watched as they rifled through her glove compartment, checked under seats, and even opened her trunk. Her case files and personal belongings were being handled without care, and her blood boiled at the invasion. Sergeant Wilson, she said evenly, I'd like to make a phone call. That won't be necessary. This will be over shortly, he replied. I believe I have the right to make a call. You're not under arrest, Judge. You're being detained during an investigation. Elaine pulled out her phone anyway. Then I'm calling my attorney, and I suggest you prepare to explain to the police commissioner why 3 officers are detaining and searching the vehicle of a superior court judge without probable cause. This got his attention. Sergeant Wilson's expression changed slightly as she dialed. Elaine called her colleague, Judge Howard Thompson, the most senior judge in their district and a close friend. "Howard, it's Elaine," she said when he answered. "I'm currently being detained by 3 officers on the corner of Maple and 5th. They've searched my vehicle without consent and are claiming it might be stolen. Despite my having provided all documentation of ownership and identification." She paused. "Yes, I would appreciate that." "Thank you." She ended the call and looked at Sergeant Wilson. "Judge Thompson is calling the commissioner now. He's also on his way here." For the first time, uncertainty flickered across the sergeant's face. The mention of the commissioner and another judge seemed to shift the dynamic. Officer Barrett approached from her car. "Vehicle's clean, Sarge. Registration matches the system." "And the VIN?" Wilson asked. "Matches. Everything checks out." Sergeant Wilson looked at Elaine, then at the growing crowd of witnesses with their phones still recording. His radio crackled and he stepped away to answer it, speaking in hushed tones. When he returned, his demeanor had changed completely. "Judge Montgomery, you're free to go. We apologize for the inconvenience." "Inconvenience," Elaine repeated. "Is that what you call this? Racial profiling and harassment are not inconveniences, Sergeant Wilson. They're violations of my civil rights. We were following protocol based on seeing a black woman in an expensive car," Elaine finished for him. "Let's not pretend this would have happened if I were white." The silence that followed was answer enough. Barrett and the second officer had retreated to their vehicles, suddenly eager to leave the scene. "I will be filing a formal complaint," Elaine continued, "and I expect body camera footage to be preserved from all 3 officers present." Sergeant Wilson nodded stiffly. "Of course, Judge." A car pulled up and Judge Thompson, a 65-year-old white man with silver hair, stepped out. He surveyed the scene with barely contained anger. "Elaine," he called, walking over. "Are you all right?" "I'm fine, Howard," she replied, though they both knew it wasn't true. No one was fine after such an experience. He turned to Sergeant Wilson. "I spoke with Commissioner Reynolds. He'd like you to call him immediately." The sergeant's face paled slightly. "Yes, sir." "And these officers' body cameras have been activated this entire time?" Thompson asked. "Yes, sir." "Good. Because I'm sure the commissioner will want to review the footage." Elaine gathered her belongings, which had been carelessly removed from her vehicle during the search. Her case files were disorganized, her personal items scattered. The physical mess mirrored her emotional state, violated, disrespected, and angry. As the officers finally departed, Judge Thompson helped her restore order to her car. "How did we get here, Howard?" she asked quietly. 15 years on the bench and I'm still treated like a criminal for driving my own car." "The system is broken," he replied simply. "But people like you are how we fix it." Elaine nodded, thanking the bystanders who had stayed to witness the incident. As she prepared to drive home, Thomas, the law clerk, approached her window. "Judge Montgomery," he said, his voice shaking slightly with anger on her behalf. "I recorded everything. What they did, it wasn't right." "No, it wasn't," she agreed. "But what happens next will be up to us. Thank you for being a witness, Thomas." As she finally drove away, Elaine's mind was racing. The humiliation of the experience burned, but underneath was a steely resolve. This wouldn't be swept under the rug. Not this time. She was in a position to make sure of that. The clock on Elaine's nightstand read 2:17 a.m., but sleep remained elusive. She sat in her living room, a cup of tea gone cold beside her, replaying the events of the evening over and over in her mind. Each time the same question surfaced. Would this have happened if she were white? If she were a man? If she had been driving her old car instead of the new one? The answers were painfully obvious. Her phone buzzed with another notification. Since arriving home, she'd received dozens of messages. Colleagues who had heard about the incident, friends checking on her, and links to videos already circulating online. One clip taken by Thomas the law clerk had been shared thousands of times in just a few hours. She hadn't watched any of them. Living through it once was enough. A text from her daughter appeared. "Mom, are you okay? People are sharing videos from tonight. Call me, doesn't matter how late." Elaine sighed and dialed her daughter's number. "Mom," Zoe answered immediately. "What happened? Are you all right?" I'm fine, sweetheart, Elaine said, trying to keep her voice steady. Just another day being black in America. The videos don't show everything. What exactly happened? Elaine recounted the events, the initial stop, the questioning, the search, the humiliation of standing on the roadside while strangers recorded her ordeal. That's horrible, Zoe said, her voice tight with anger. They had no right to treat you that way. You're a judge, for God's sake. That's just it, Zoe, Elaine replied softly. It shouldn't matter that I'm a judge. No one should be treated that way regardless of their position. There was a pause before Zoe asked the question Elaine had been wrestling with all night. What are you going to do about it? That was the million-dollar question. As a judge, Elaine had options that many others in similar situations didn't. She had connections, resources, and an understanding of the system that could help her seek accountability. But she also had a reputation to consider, relationships within the legal community that might be strained if she pushed too hard. I don't know yet, she admitted. Part of me wants to let it go. I'm safe, nothing worse happened. But another part, the fighter in you, Zoe finished. Elaine smiled despite herself. Her daughter knew her well. Yes, the fighter. She's not very happy right now. Listen to her, Mom. If you don't stand up when this happens to you with all your privilege and position, what message does that send? The question hung in the air, heavy with truth. After reassuring Zoe that she would be fine and promising to call again tomorrow, Elaine ended the call and stared at the ceiling. Her daughter was right. If she didn't fight this, who would? Morning brought little clarity but a renewed sense of purpose. After a restless night, Elaine called the courthouse to clear her docket for the day, citing a personal emergency. Her clerk, obviously concerned, didn't press for details. By 9 a.m., her phone was ringing constantly. Local news outlets had picked up the story. Judge profiled by police was trending on social media. Several of her colleagues had left messages of support, while others were conspicuously silent. Judge Thompson arrived at her home around 10, carrying a folder of papers and a grim expression. It's everywhere, he said as she invited him in. The commissioner called an emergency meeting this morning. They're in damage control mode. Have you seen the body camera footage? Elaine asked, leading him to her kitchen table. Yes. Thompson nodded, his jaw tight. It's damning, Elaine. Especially Barrett's. His comments when he first approached his patrol car after the initial contact. Let's just say they confirm everything you suspected about his motives. Elaine felt a cold anger settling in her chest. So what happens now? That depends on you, Thompson replied, opening his folder. You have options. The commissioner wants to resolve this quietly. Paid leave for the officers involved, sensitivity training, the usual slap on the wrist. And if that's not enough for me? Thompson met her eyes. Then you fight. File a formal complaint. Go to the media. Use your position to force actual accountability. It won't be easy, and there will be backlash. From who? Elaine asked, though she already knew the answer. From everyone who benefits from the status quo. The police union, certainly. Probably some of our more conservative colleagues on the bench. Maybe even some of our friends who think you should be reasonable and not make this a race thing. Elaine nodded, unsurprised. And what do you think I should do? Thompson sighed heavily. As your friend who cares about your well-being, take the easy resolution. Get an apology, see the officers disciplined, and move on with your life. He paused. As someone who believes in justice, fight like hell, because if they did this to you, a superior court judge, imagine what happens to people without your resources and connections. They spent the next hour discussing strategies and reviewing legal options. As Thompson was leaving, Elaine's phone rang again. This time it was an old friend from law school, Diane Chen, now a civil rights attorney. I saw the videos, Diane said without preamble. Tell me you're filing a complaint. I'm considering my options, Elaine replied carefully. What options? Elaine, they profiled you, harassed you, and searched your car without consent or probable cause. There are no options except holding them accountable. It's not that simple, Diane. It never is, her friend conceded. But if anyone can navigate this, it's you. And you won't be alone. I've already had 3 other incidents cross my desk this month. Similar situations, different outcomes. Not everyone has a crowd of witnesses with phones or friends in high places. The weight of responsibility settled more firmly on Elaine's shoulders. This wasn't just about her dignity or her rights. It was about everyone who had faced similar treatment without the shield of a judicial title. By afternoon, Elaine had made her decision. She drafted a formal complaint, detailing the events with the precision of a legal brief. No emotional language, just facts, the traffic stop, the questioning about her car, the baseless claim of a stolen vehicle report, the search without consent, the humiliation of being detained roadside while onlookers recorded. As she reviewed the document, her phone buzzed with a text from Thomas, the law clerk. Judge Montgomery, I hope you're okay. The video has over 100,000 views now. People are outraged on your behalf. Let me know if you need anything. Attached was a link to the video. Against her better judgment, Elaine clicked it. Watching herself on screen was surreal. The calm dignity she'd managed to maintain despite the situation, the clear violation of her rights unfolding for all to see. The comments were a mix of support and, predictably, racist vitriol questioning her version of events despite the clear video evidence. Another text came through, this one from Judge Thompson. Commissioner wants to meet tomorrow. Police chief will be there. They're worried. They should be, Elaine whispered to herself. That evening she received an unexpected visitor. Her neighbor, Mrs. Walker, an 83-year-old who had lived on the street for over 50 years, brought over a homemade apple pie. I heard what happened, the elderly woman said simply. My grandson showed me that internet video thing. Made me sick to my stomach to see them treat you that way. Thank you. Mrs. Walker, Elaine said, touched by the gesture. You know, Mrs. Walker continued, settling onto Elaine's couch uninvited but not unwelcome. When my late husband and I moved here in 1972, we were the first black family on this street. Had our windows broken 3 times that first month. The police came, took notes, never did a thing. She patted Elaine's hand. Things have changed, but not enough. Not nearly enough, no, Elaine agreed. They haven't. So what are you going to do about it? The question was eerily similar to Zoe's from the night before. I'm filing a formal complaint tomorrow, meeting with the police commissioner and the chief. Mrs. Walker nodded approvingly. Good. Use that position of yours. Make them listen. After her neighbor left, Elaine sat down at her computer and finalized her complaint. Then she did something she hadn't planned. She wrote a public statement. Not a plea for sympathy or an angry condemnation, but a clear-eyed assessment of what had happened and why it mattered. What happened to me happens to people across this country every day, she wrote. The difference is that I have the title judge before my name and cameras were rolling. I am using my voice for those who aren't heard, and my position for those who are powerless in these situations. This isn't about one traffic stop or 3 officers. It's about a system that needs fundamental change. She read it over once, twice, 3 times. Then she sent it to Judge Thompson, Diane, and Zoe. Is this too much? She asked in the accompanying message. The responses came quickly. From Thompson, it's exactly enough. From Diane, it's what they need to hear. From Zoe, I'm so proud of you. Mom, tomorrow would bring its own challenges, meetings, probably some heated exchanges, possibly threats to her career advancement. But tonight, Elaine felt a resolve that overcame her anger and humiliation. This wasn't the fight she had chosen, but it was one she would not shy away from. She saved the statement to release after her meeting tomorrow, closed her laptop, and for the first time since the incident, felt ready for sleep. Whatever came next, she would face it standing tall, not just as Judge Montgomery but as Elaine, a woman who had worked too hard and come too far to be silenced now. The police headquarters building stood tall and imposing against the morning sky. Elaine had been here many times before, to meet with prosecutors, to discuss court procedures with officers, even to give talks about judicial expectations for testimony. But today felt different. Today she wasn't coming as Judge Montgomery, respected member of the Superior Court. She was coming as a complainant. You ready for this? Judge Thompson asked as they walked up the steps together. As ready as I'll ever be, Elaine replied, gripping her folder of documents tightly. The commissioner's office was on the top floor, a spacious room with windows overlooking the city. Commissioner Phillips, a tall man with a military-style haircut going gray at the temples, greeted them at the door. Police Chief Rodriguez stood near a conference table where several folders were already laid out. Judge Montgomery, Judge Thompson. The commissioner nodded. Thank you for coming. The formality felt strange given the circumstances. Elaine had known Commissioner Phillips for years. had even attended his swearing-in ceremony. Now there was an awkward distance between them. "Let's get straight to it," Chief Rodriguez suggested once they were seated. "We've reviewed the body camera footage from all 3 officers involved in the incident. We've also collected the civilian videos that have been circulating online." "And?" Elaine prompted. Commissioner Phillips sighed heavily. "And it's not good. The initial stop appears to have been legitimate. Officer Barrett did observe what could reasonably be considered an improper lane change. But everything after that," he shook his head. "The questioning about your vehicle, the search, the detention after your identity was established, none of that followed protocol." "I know," Elaine said simply. "We're prepared to take immediate action," the chief continued. "Officer Barrett has been placed on administrative leave pending a full investigation. Sergeant Wilson is being reassigned to desk duty. We're also reviewing their prior conduct for any patterns of similar behavior." Elaine listened quietly, her face carefully neutral. These were the expected first steps, the minimum response to a situation that was becoming a public relations nightmare for the department. "We'd like to offer an official apology," Commissioner Phillips added, "both privately and publicly. What happened to you was unacceptable." "I appreciate that," Elaine replied, "but I think we both know an apology isn't enough." She opened her folder and slid a document across the table, her formal complaint, meticulously detailed and officially notarized. "I'm filing this with your office, with the Civilian Oversight Board and with the State Attorney General's office," she explained. "I'm requesting a full investigation, not just into this incident but into departmental practices regarding traffic stops and searches." The commissioner's expression tightened slightly. "Judge Montgomery, I understand your frustration, but escalating this to the AG's office seems premature. We're handling this internally." "With all due respect," Elaine interrupted, "that's part of the problem. Internal investigations rarely result in meaningful change. And this isn't just about me or these officers. This is about a pattern of behavior that affects countless citizens who don't have my resources or connections." Chief Rodriguez leaned forward. "We take these matters very seriously, Judge. Our department has implemented extensive training on bias and proper procedure." "Which clearly wasn't effective in this case," Judge Thompson interjected. "The question is, why not? And how many other cases like this have occurred without cameras rolling or judicial IDs being presented?" An uncomfortable silence fell over the room. Elaine pulled out another document. "I've analyzed traffic stop data from your department over the past 3 years," she said, sliding the papers toward them. "Black drivers are pulled over at a rate 3 times higher than white drivers in this city. They're searched 7 times more often, despite contraband being found less frequently than in vehicles driven by white people." The commissioner and chief exchanged glances. "Where did you get this data?" the chief asked. "Public records request," Judge Thompson answered. "We filed it 6 months ago for an entirely different matter. The pattern was clear even then," Elaine continued, her voice steady. "I've also requested Officer Barrett's personnel records. I understand there are privacy concerns, but as the subject of his actions, I have certain rights to this information." "There are 3 prior complaints," Commissioner Phillips admitted reluctantly, "all involving minority drivers, all dismissed after internal review." This confirmation of what she had suspected sent a chill through Elaine. 3 prior complaints, all dismissed. How many more had never been filed because the drivers didn't know their rights or feared retaliation? "The videos have gone viral," Elaine said. "My phone hasn't stopped ringing with calls from reporters. I've been asked to appear on national news programs. I've declined so far, wanting to give the department a chance to address this properly first. It wasn't a threat exactly, but the implication was clear. This story could become much bigger, much more damaging to the department if not handled correctly." "What exactly are you looking for here, Judge Montgomery?" the commissioner asked directly. "Justice," she replied simply. "Accountability for the officers involved. A thorough review of departmental policies, required body cameras for all officers, with penalties for units that are mysteriously turned off. Regular public reporting of traffic stop data broken down by race and outcome. And a civilian oversight committee with actual power, not just advisory capacity." "That's extensive," Chief Rodriguez said. "So is the problem," Elaine countered. The meeting continued for another hour, moving from tense disagreement to cautious negotiation. By the end, the commissioner had agreed to a joint statement announcing a full review of the department's practices, increased transparency measures, and an expedited investigation into the incident. As they left the building, Judge Thompson looked impressed. "You didn't give an inch in there. I couldn't afford to," Elaine replied. "This isn't just about me." Back at the courthouse, Elaine found her chambers buzzing with activity. Her clerk, Anthony, was fielding calls from reporters, while her judicial assistant tried to reorganize her docket for the week. "Judge," Anthony said as she entered, "the chief judge wants to see you, and these came for you." He gestured to several bouquets of flowers on her desk, along with cards and even a few small gift baskets. "From who?" Elaine asked, surprised. "Court staff, other judges, members of the Bar Association, and a lot of people you don't know. The reception desk says they've been coming all morning." Elaine felt a rush of emotion. The support was unexpected and touching. The chief judge, Vernon Taylor, was waiting in his office when she arrived. A tall, distinguished black man in his 60s, he had been Elaine's mentor when she first joined the bench. "I watched the video," he said without preamble. "Reminded me of when I got pulled over in my judicial robe 15 years ago, driving home from court. Some things haven't changed." "Some things have," Elaine replied. "At least people are watching now." Judge Taylor nodded. "The question is whether watching will lead to change." "What did the commissioner say?" Elaine briefed him on the meeting and her demands. When she finished, he smiled slightly. "You're not making yourself popular with certain people. You know, I'm not trying to be popular." "Good, because this is going to get messier before it gets better." He paused, studying her face. "The Judicial Conduct Committee might get involved. Some will say you're being too political. The judges should remain above the fray." "There's nothing political about demanding equal treatment under the law," Elaine said firmly. "I agree, but be prepared for the pushback." He stood, signaling the end of their meeting. "For what it's worth, you have my full support. And not just professionally." By mid-afternoon, the department had released their promised statement, acknowledging the incident and announcing the investigation. Elaine published her own statement shortly after, and within hours, her phone was ringing with requests for interviews. Thomas, the law clerk who had recorded the incident, stopped by her chambers. "I've been asked to provide my video to the investigation team," he said. "I wanted to check with you first." "Of course you should provide it," Elaine assured him. "And Thomas, thank you for stopping that night, for recording, for being a witness." "Anyone would have done the same," he said. "No," Elaine shook her head. "They wouldn't. That's part of the problem." As evening fell, Elaine returned home to find more supporters and a few detractors on social media discussing her case. Some praised her courage. Others questioned whether she was playing the race card despite the clear video evidence. Her daughter called again. "I saw your statement online. It's perfect, Mom." "Let's hope it makes a difference," Elaine replied. "It already has," Zoe insisted. "My friends are sharing it everywhere. People are talking about this in ways they weren't before. You've started something important." After they hung up, Elaine sat on her porch watching the sunset. Her phone buzzed with a text from Diane Chen, her attorney friend. "Just got contacted by 2 more people with similar stories about Officer Barrett. This is bigger than we thought. Call me when you can." Elaine took a deep breath. The investigation was only beginning, and already more pieces were falling into place. Whatever came next would be challenging, possibly even dangerous to her career. But for the first time since the incident, she felt something close to hope. Not just for accountability in her case, but for the possibility of real, lasting change.